In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create your first website with Python and a very popular framework called Django. So it's spelled with a silent D and it's pronounced Django. It's a web framework for perfectionists with deadlines. So if you're a perfectionist and you want to quickly put together a website that is fast, scalable, and secure, Django is your best friend. And here are the popular websites built with Django, like Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, Washington Post, and so on. Now you might ask, what is a framework and why do we need a framework to build a web application or a website? Well, a framework is essentially a library of reusable modules. These modules provide functionality for common tasks. For example, in case of a web framework like Django, we have modules to work with HTTP requests, URLs, sessions, cookies, and so on. These are the concerns of pretty much every website or web application out there. So all this functionality is already baked into Django. We don't have to code it from scratch. That is why we use a framework like Django. Now, technically a framework is more than a library. So apart from providing these modules, it also defines a structure for our application. It tells us what folders and files we should have in our project. So this provides a consistency amongst various Django projects. So as you move from one company to another and work on different projects, you can easily transition from one project to another because all these applications follow the same structure. Now, with that introduction, let's create our first Django project. So back to PyCharm, close the Hello World project and create a new project. Okay, let's call this new project PyShop. Go ahead. All right, now down the bottom, let's open up a terminal window. In this window, we're going to install Django. So we use pip to install Django, but be sure to add 2 equal signs here, followed by 2.1. With this, we're telling pip that we want to install Django version 2.1. The reason I'm doing this is because in the future, when you're watching this video, chances are there is a newer version of Django out there. I want to make sure that you can easily follow these tutorials, even though what I'm going to show you in these tutorials will most likely work with the latest version of Django. I just want to be on the safe side. So let's go ahead with this. All right, Django is installed. Next, we need to create a Django project. So here, press Ctrl and L. This cleans up our terminal window. You don't have to do it, but it's just easier to see. To create a Django project, we need to execute this command, Django-admin space start project space. We're going to call this project PyShop space period. So when we install Django, Django brings a command line utility called Django-admin. So this is a utility or program that we can execute from the command line or terminal right here. Now, this program takes various arguments. In this case, we want to use this argument, start project. With this, we're going to create a project called PyShop in the current folder. So this period is important here. That means the current folder. If you don't add this period, this utility is going to create an extra folder, and that looks a little bit repetitive. So let's go ahead with this. All right. Now, back to the project panel. If you expand PyShop, you can see that this is our project that we created in PyCharm. And in this folder, we have these files. So init.py, you have seen this before. That means this folder is a package. So we can import various modules from this package into other modules. So here we have this settings module. In this module, we define various settings for our application. You're going to see this later in this course. We also have the URLs module. And with this module, we define what should the user see when they go to, let's say, /about, /contact, /products, /shopping cart. Again, we're going to work with this soon. And finally, we have this module, WSGI, that is short for Web Server Gateway Interface. The purpose of this module is to provide a standard interface between applications built with Django and web servers. This is an advanced topic, so for now, don't worry about it. Now, outside of this folder, we also have this new file in our project, that is manage.py. As the name implies, we use this module to manage this Django project. With this, we can start our web server, we can work with our database. Again, we're going to work with this soon. So let's open up the terminal window one more time. Now type out this command, Python if you're on Windows, or Python 3 if you're on Mac, because as I told you at the beginning of the course, Mac by default comes with an installation of Python, that is Python 2. But in this course, we're using Python 3. So Python 3 space manage.py space run server. What is going on here? So with Python interpreter, we are running this program manage.py and passing run server as an argument. This manage.py is essentially the same program that we worked with here, Django admin. But we used Django admin before creating a Django project. Now we have a Django project. So in this project, we worked with manage.py. This is a module that contains some Python code. So we use this module to manage our Django project. So let's go ahead and run our development web server. As you can see, this started a development web server at this address, http://127.0.0.1. That is the address of your current machine. Now note that after this, we have :8000. Unfortunately, the link below this address has a problem. As you can see, the port is excluded. So if we click this, it opens up our web browser and points it to this address. So we don't have the port number. Let's add :8000 at the end. And here's our first Django website. So we created this Django project. Now, this Django project can contain multiple apps. These apps don't represent the entire application. There are small functional areas in our Django project. Here's an example. Imagine you want to build a website or a web application like Amazon. Amazon is a big website. It has so many different functions. Instead of implementing all these functions in a Django project, we divide this project into small functional areas that are focused on one concern. For example, we could have functional areas like product management, order management, customer management. These are completely different functional areas. The functions we have for managing the customers are different from the functions for managing the products. By the same token, when you go to an organization, there are small departments or small offices specializing in different areas. So with this analogy, we divide a Django project into multiple Django apps. Each app is focused on one functional area. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to add a new app to manage the products in our imaginary shop. In the future, let's say we want to add a blog to our online shop. We could come back here and create a new app that represents a blog. Now, the beauty of these apps is that we can reuse them across different Django projects because each app is essentially a Python package. Let me show you. So back to our project, let's open up a terminal window. So this is the terminal window we opened earlier where we started our web server. Now up here, we have this plus button for creating a new terminal window. So let's click that. Now let's type out this command, Python on Windows or Python 3 on Mac, manage.py. So we are using the same program, the same module, but this time with a different argument. Start app, and we're going to call that app products. Let's go ahead. All right, now here we have a new folder called products. Let's see what we have in this folder. We have a subfolder called migrations. We'll look at this later. Below that, we have this init.py. So products is a package. We can take this package and reuse it in another Django application, or more specifically, Django project. We can also publish this package to PyPI for other people to reuse in their Django projects. For example, if someone else wants to build an online shop, they can reuse this package for managing the list of products. They don't have to build this functionality from scratch, okay? We have this module, admin, and this is used for defining how the administrative panel of this app will look like. Again, we're going to come back to this later. Below that, we have this module, apps. Unfortunately, the name is a little bit confusing because right now we are inside of one app, that is the products app, and it doesn't make sense to have a module called apps inside of an app. So I don't know why Django creators decided to call this module apps, but basically we use this module to store various configuration settings for this app. So it would be better to call this config. But that aside, let's move on. Next, we have models, and this is where we define classes or new types for modeling the concepts in this app, in this domain. For example, in the domain of products, you probably have concepts like product, category, review, and so on. So we could model these concepts using classes. Again, we're going to come back to this and define a new class here. Next, we have tests.py, and this is where we write automated tests for this app. That's an advanced topic beyond the scope of this course, so don't worry about it. And finally, we have the views module. And this is where we define what should the user see when they navigate to a certain page. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create your first view or view function in Django. What is a view function? A view function is basically a function that gets called by Django when the user navigates to a particular page. For example, here we are on the homepage of our website. When we go to /products, our browser sends an HTTP request to our web server. At this point, Django takes that request, it inspects the URL or the address, it figures out that we want to see the list of products. Then it will call a function, which we call a view function, and the job of this function is to return the response to the browser or to the client. So this function should generate some HTML markup to be returned to the client. Our browser will get this HTML content and display it as a page right here. Now, technically, if you want to be a web developer, you need to know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'll try to do my best to hold your hand throughout this course. But in the future, be sure to watch a tutorial about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. On my channel, I have plenty of JavaScript tutorials. I recommend you to start with my JavaScript tutorial for beginners. So back to our project. Inside the Products app, let's open up the Views module. So here on the top, we have some boilerplate code. From Django.shortcuts, we are importing the render function. So Django is a package, shortcuts is a module, and we are importing the render function. You will see this soon. Below that, we have this comment. We don't need it. Let's create our first view function. So define. We call this function index. It doesn't really matter, but by convention, we use the word index for the main page of an app. So when we go to /products, this will be the main page of our products app. Now, potentially in the future, we could support additional URLs inside of this app. For example, products/new or trending and so on. So we call this function index. Now, all our view functions should always take a parameter, and that is the HTTP request that is passed to this view function. So as I told you before, when we navigate to /products, our browser sends an HTTP request to our web server. Django takes this request and sends it to our view function. With this request object, we can find information about the client. Now, in this tutorial, we don't want to worry about HTML. We just want to return some plain text to the browser, like hello world. So on the top, from Django.http module, we need to import a class called HTTP response. With this class, we can create an HTTP response to return to the client or the browser. So back to our view function. Here we return an HTTP response object. So we're creating an instance of this class, right? Now, as an argument to the constructor, we pass hello world. Now we need to add an extra blank line above the index function to make PyCharm happy. Beautiful. As simple as that. So we are done with this view function, but nowhere Django knows that it should call this function when we send a request to /products. So we need to tell Django that, hey, whenever there is a request to /products, call this index function. We need to map this URL to this function. A URL is short for Uniform Resource Locator, and that basically means address. Okay, so let's do the mapping. We're done with this module, close it. Back to our products app, right-click this folder and add a new Python file. Call that URLs. The name is very important here. This is one of the conventions that Django framework defines. So we need to follow this convention to structure our project. Okay, so this adds urls.py inside of the products app. Now in this module, once again, by convention, we should define a variable called URL patterns. Make sure to spell it exactly as you see here. So there is no underscore between these two words, and all characters are in lowercase. So we set this to a list object. In this list, we map various URLs to their view functions. Now to reference a URL, we need to import the path function. So on the top, from Django.urls, let's import the path function. With this function, we can map a URL to a view function. So we call the path function. The first argument is a string that specifies our URL endpoint. Here we pass an empty string that is a string with no characters in it. And this represents the root of this app. Let me show you what I mean. So Imagine our app starts at /products. So if the user sends a request to this endpoint, they will be at the root of this app. Potentially here we could have other URLs like /products, /one, /detail, or /products, /new, or trending, or whatever. So all the URLs in this app start with /products. Okay? Now back to the first example. What happens if we take away this /products? We are left with nothing. And that is why we use an empty string here. Now, as the second argument to this function, we need to specify our view function. So we defined that view function inside of the views module. So first we need to import this module into the URLs module. Now, this is how we do this. From period import views. Period means the current folder. So from the current folder, we are importing the views module. So with this syntax, we're telling Django to import the views module that we have in this folder. Now you might ask, Mosh, why didn't we import the views module like this? Import views, because views is actually in the current folder. So why do we have to use the from import syntax? The reason for this is because views is kind of a generic name. So it is possible that our project has a dependency to another library called views. With this syntax, Python will end up importing that module instead of the views module in the current folder because that will take priority. So to remove these potential issues, we use the from import syntax. So now we imported the views module. As you know, when we import a module, that module will end up being an object. So we can use the dot operator to access the functions defined in that module. So here we want to reference the index function. Okay, let's delete it from here. Back to our path function. As the second argument, we type out views.index. Now note that I'm not calling this function. I'm simply passing a reference to it. Django will take care of calling this function at runtime when the client sends an HTTP request to the server. So here we should not call this function. So let's quickly recap what we have done up to this point. In the views module, we created this view function. And in this view function, we simply return some plain text to the browser or the client. Now, I told you that nowhere Django knows that it should call this function. So that's why we added the URLs module to our app. And in this module, we mapped the root URL to this view function. There's one more step left. We need to tell Django about this app because up to this point, Django is not aware of this app. So let's collapse the products folder and open up the PyShop folder. In this folder, we have another URLs module, and this is like the root or the parent URLs module in our Django project. Let's open this and scroll down. Once again, you see this URL patterns variable that is set to a list. In this list, again, we're calling the path function. As the first argument, we're telling Django that, hey, any URLs that start with admin, delegate them to the admin app. So every Django project by default comes with this admin app, which gives us a beautiful administrative panel. We're going to work with that soon. So in this module, we should also tell Django about our products app. So let's add another object to this list. Once again, we call the path function. Now we tell Django that, hey, any paths or any URLs that start with products / delegate them to the products app. So we want Django to delegate the handling of that request to this URLs module that we defined in the products app. Okay, how do we do that? Very easy. Back to the main or the parent URLs module. On line 16, we have this import statement. Let's expand it. So basically, we have two import statements. Look at the second one. From Django.urls module, we're importing the path function. There is another function that we need to import, and that is the include function. Now we're going to use this function on line 21. So as the second argument to the path function, we call include. And here we need to reference the URLs module in the products app. So we type out products.urls. So take a look. In the products app, you have this module, URLs. That is why we type products.urls. But we don't type out .py. Django will automatically take care of that. Now, at this point, you might be a little bit confused or intimidated by all these various steps that you have to follow. They may look foreign to you, But trust me, this becomes second nature as you practice building Django applications. It's actually very easy. It's just the first time that you have to follow these conventions defined in Django framework. Once you understand the concept, it becomes really easy. So basically, because we created a new app, the products app, only once ever, we need to write this line of code to tell Django that, hey, any URLs that start with products / send them to the URLs module in the products app. So we write this line of code only once. Anytime in the future, we want to define a new view function. First, we go to the views module, we create a new function, and then we go to the URLs module in that app and define a new URL pattern to map that view function to a URL endpoint. That is really easy. All right, now let's test our application. So back to the browser, let's head over to /products. There you go. You see our hello world message here, beautiful. But if we navigate back to the home page, we get this error, page not found. So our beautiful Django homepage disappeared. And the reason for this is that homepage is automatically generated and is only displayed when we first create a Django project. As soon as we define a new URL pattern and register it in our project, that homepage disappears. But don't worry, we're going to come back and create a new function for our homepage later in the course. Now here's your exercise. I want you to modify this Django project such that when we navigate to products/new, we'll see a page here with some text like new products. I strongly encourage you to do this exercise because it makes it really easy for you to follow the future tutorials. All right, here in the products app, let's open up the views module. In this module, we define a new view function. So define, let's call that function new. As I told you before, every view function should take this request parameter. Now here we want to return an HTTP response with the text new products. That's it. Now to make PyCharm happy, we add another line break here. So we have 2 line breaks after the index function and also 2 line breaks after the new function. These are the best practices defined in PEP 8 to format our code. So we're done with this view function. Now we need to map it to a URL endpoint. So we go back to the products app and open up the URLs module. Here we need to add another URL pattern. So we call the path function. The first argument should be new. You want to map this URL endpoint to views.new function. That's all you had to do. Now back to our browser. When we navigate to products/new, we get this message in the browser. Beautiful. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a model in a Django project. A model is a representation of a real-world concept. For example, in an online shop, we could have models like order, customer, shopping cart, product, review, and so on. So let's go ahead and create our first model. Here in the products app, open up the models module. In this module, we're going to create a new class called product. So let's delete this comment. We don't really need it. Class product. Now we need to inherit this class from the model class in Django. So in parentheses, we type out models.model. Let's see what's going on here. So on line 1, from django.db package, we are importing the models module. In this module, we have a class called model, and this class defines all the common characteristics and behavior for models in a Django application. For example, we want to be able to store these models in a database, or read them from a database, or delete them. These are all the common operations that we need to perform on these model objects. So by inheriting this product class from this model class, our product class will have all these capabilities built into it. We don't have to code it, okay? So, colon. Now in this class, we need to define a few attributes. What are the attributes of a product that we need to know in an online shop? We need to know their name, price, stock, image, and so on. So let's define a new attribute. We call it name, and we set it to an instance of models.charField class. So once again, in this module, we have a class called charField, which is short for character field, and this represents a field that can contain textual data. Now here, as a best practice, we can supply a maximum length to prevent a malicious user or hacker from accidentally storing a product with an enormously large name. This can mess up with our application. So let's pass a keyword argument, max length, and we set it to 255 characters. Now let's define the price attribute. So we set price to models dot float field. So this represents a field that can contain floating point numbers. That's it. Now let's define the stock. We set this to an instance of models.integer field. And finally, let's define image underline URL to an instance of models.char field. So in this course, we're going to use Google to find an image for our products. For example, we can find this image, right-click it, and copy its link address, which is the URL. Now, if you open up a new tab and paste that URL, you can see this is a very long string. So we don't want to enforce a maximum length of 255 characters. Instead, we want to use 2083 characters. That is the standard maximum length for URLs. So our product class or product model has these 4 attributes. Now to make PyCharm happy and remove this warning, let's put the cursor at the end of this line, press enter, then backspace to remove the indentation. Beautiful. We should also add 2 line breaks before this class. So here's one, press enter, the second line break. Beautiful. So our code is formatted according to PEP 8 standards. Next, I will show you how to use this model to create a database table for storing products. In this Django project we have created, you can see we have this file db.sqlite3. This is an empty database file that Django creates, and we use this to store our data. Now, SQLite is a kind of database, and it's the simplest for small applications, but it's not suitable for large enterprise web applications. So if you want to build a real enterprise web application with Django, you need to use a proper database engine like SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, and so on. The good news is that Django supports all of these database engines. But SQLite is the easiest to get started. So we're going to work with this for now. And in the future, I will show you how to use a proper database engine. Now, for the purpose of this tutorial, I want you to open up your browser and search for DB browser for SQLite. So on this page, sqlitebrowser.org, you can find a very simple and free application for opening SQLite databases. And as you can see here on the right side, there are executables for Windows, Mac, and so on. So when you open it, you get something like this. We can create a new database here on the top or open an existing one. Now here I'm going to drag and drop our database file right here. You can see we don't have any tables in this database. So to store data, first we need to create a table. For example, to store the list of products, we need to create the table called products, and the fields or columns we have in this table should be exactly the same as the attributes we have in our product class. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use Django to automatically create this table. We don't have to do this by hand. We can just tell Django, hey, here's our model. Go ahead and automatically create a database table for storing our products. That is very easy. So here down the bottom, let's open up a new terminal window and run Python on Windows or Python 3 on Mac, manage.py, make migrations. Make sure to spell this properly. So make migrations in one word. Now when you run this, you get this message, no changes detected, because by default, Django doesn't know about our product model. To solve this problem, we need to go back to our project and open the PyShop package. In this package, we have this settings module for storing various configuration settings for our project. So let's open this and scroll down. On line 33, you can see a variable called installed apps set to a list of strings. These are applications or apps that are automatically installed with every Django project. For example, we have this admin app, which gives us a beautiful administrative panel. You're going to work with it soon. You also have this auth app, and we use this to authenticate users. You can put them in different roles, give them different permissions. It's all about authentication and authorization. We'll look at the other installed apps in a future tutorial. So for now, let's register our products app in this list. How do we do that? First, we go to our project. Inside the products app, earlier I told you about the apps module. Take a look here. The name of this module is a little bit misleading because we're in the boundary of one app and we have a module called apps. That aside, all we have here is a class called productsconfig, where we store configuration settings for this particular app. Okay. Now we need to go back to our settings module and add the complete path to this class, including its package and module. So this class is defined in the apps module, and this module is inside of the products package. So back to the settings file. In the list of installed apps, we need to type out a string like this. Products, that's our package, dot, apps, that's our module, and then products config. Again, make sure to spell this properly. So P and C are capitalized because here we have a class, but products and apps are all in lowercase, okay? So now Django knows about our products app. So when we go back to the terminal and run the last command, we'll get a different result. So use the up arrow to bring up the last command and enter. There you go. Now we get this message, migrations for products. So inside the products folder, inside the migrations folder, we have a new module with this sequence number called initial. Let's have a quick look at the code inside this module. So back to our products app, let's expand the migrations folder. Here's our initial migration. Let's have a quick look here. So we have a class called migration. And in this class, we have this attribute called operations, which is set to a list of operations. So every migration can contain multiple operations. Look at the first operation we have here, migrations that create model. So with this operation, we can create a new database table called product. And in that table, we're going to have these fields: ID, name, price, stock, and image URL. These are the attributes that we created in our product class. But we didn't have this ID attribute. Django automatically generates this because every database table must have an ID field. And we use this to uniquely identify records in our database. Now let's go back to the terminal. So we have a new migration, but our database is still in its previous state. We don't have a new table here yet. So we need to run this new migration to generate our product table. And that is very easy. So one more time, Python manage.py migrate. When we run this command, Django will look at our project. It will look at every app and it will run the pending migrations for that app against our database. So take a look. When we run this, we get several messages. So if you scroll up, you can see applying content types .001 initial. So in the content types app, which is one of the apps installed by default, we have this migration. So Django ran this migration and this created a database table for this app. Similarly, in the auth app, which is used for authenticating users, we have this initial migration. We also have a bunch of migrations for the admin app. So Django ran all of these migrations, and down the bottom, you can see applying products initial migration. So every app can contain multiple migrations, and each migration will make a slight change to the database to add a new table or modify an existing one. So back to DB browser for SQLite. Let's drag and drop our database file one more time here to reload it. There you go. Now we have 12 tables in this database. Each table is prefixed with the app it belongs to. For example, you can see we have a table for storing our users. We have another table for storing the groups a user belongs to. We have another table for storing permissions and so on. Now here down the bottom, you can see this table, products, underline product. So this product table is prefixed with the name of our app, which is products. Now, if you expand this, you can see these fields in this table: ID, name, price, stock, and image URL. So this is the beauty of Django. We didn't have to come here and manually create these tables by hand. That's very time consuming. We simply created a model with these attributes, and then we ran two commands in the terminal. One for creating a new migration based on the changes we have made in our code, and the other to run the pending migrations. So now all the migrations in this project are run against our database, which means if we go back to the terminal and run python manage.py migrate, we get this new message: no migrations to apply. So here's the workflow. Next time we create a new model or modify an existing one, we should come back here in the terminal, create a new migration, and then run it. All right, here's your exercise. We want to have the concept of offering discounts in our imaginary online shop. So I want you to create a new model class called offer. And in this class, we should have 3 attributes. One is code, which is a textual field. For example, our offers code could be VCA2142. It's just a coupon code. Here we should also have an attribute called description. Again, this is going to be a textual field. For example, we can say 20% off all products. And then we can display this text somewhere on the homepage in the future. And finally, we need another attribute called discount, which is going to be a floating point number, like 0.2 for 20% discount. So go ahead, create this model class. Next, create a migration and run it to bring our database up to date. This is an awesome exercise for you to get your hands dirty in Django. So spend 3 to 5 minutes on this exercise. When you're done, come back, see my solution. So here in the models module, right after our product class, I'm going to define a new class. Class offer. This class should also derive from the model class in Django. Here we add the attributes. So the first one is code, which is going to be an instance of models.char field. And we set the max length to, let's say, 10 characters. Next, we add the description. Once again, we're going to have a char field with max length of 255 characters is sufficient. And finally, we need discount. And we're going to set this to an instance of models.float field. So here's our offer class. Now we need to create a migration. So over here, I'm going to open up a terminal window. This is the main terminal window where our web server is running. So I'm going to create a new terminal window and run python manage.py make migrations. Django detected a change in our models, so it created this new migration number 2 called offer. And this migration will create the offer table in our database. So let's go ahead and run it. Python 3 manage.py migrate. Beautiful. Now let's drag and drop our database here one more time. Our database is refreshed. As you can see, in the products app, we have this new table, offer, with these 4 columns: ID, code, description, and discount. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk to you guys about the administrative panel of Django applications. So here in the browser, if we head over to /admin, we get this beautiful login screen to log into our administrative panel. So every Django application by default comes with an administrative panel. We don't have to create this from scratch. We don't have to code this. It gets auto-generated. And this is one of the fantastic features of Django that increases your productivity. So let me show you how to work with this administrative panel. Here in PyCharm, we need to create the first user of this application. We call that super user. So here in the terminal window, let's run python manage.py create super user, all in one word. So let's go ahead with that. It asks for username. Let's type admin. Next, we need to enter an email address. I'm going to enter my email address. Next, we need to enter a password. I'm going to type 1234 and repeat it one more time. Note that it complains because this password is too short, it's too common, and it's entirely numeric. So at the end, it asks if you want to bypass password validation. For simplicity, let's go with that. But of course, in a real scenario, you don't want to create an admin user with such a simple password. All right, we successfully created the super user. Now back in the browser, let's log in with admin and 1234. There you go. So this is our administrative panel. As you can see, we can manage the users and groups. We can add new users or modify or delete existing ones. Let's have a quick look here. So here we have this search bar on the top. We can quickly search for users. Below that, we have this table of users with these columns: username, email, first name, last name, and status. We can sort this table by any of these columns. We also have these filters on the right side. So we get all these beautiful features for free with every Django application. We don't have to code this. Earlier in this course, we talked about this settings module. Let's have a quick look here. In this module, we have a setting or a variable called installed apps. And one of the apps that is installed by default is the admin app. So this app is the piece that is responsible for generating these views. Now, the beautiful thing about the admin app is that it is easily extensible. So back to the home page of our administrative panel. So far, we can only manage the users and groups. But using one line of code, we can also manage our products. Let me show you. Let's expand our products app. Inside of this app, we have this module admin. And in this module, we register the models that we need to manage in the admin section. So let's open this module. Now on the top, first we need to import our product model. So we can type out some code like this from period models. That means the models module in the current folder. So from this module, we want to import the product class or the product model, right? Now you can see this comment here, register your models here. Let's delete this comment. We don't need it anymore. Instead, we're going to write code like this. So admin.site.register, and we pass this product class as an argument. What is going on here? We're using this admin object that is imported on line 1. This object has an attribute called site, which is an object itself. This object has a method called register. We're calling this method and passing our product class as an argument. With this, we're telling Django that we want to manage our products in the admin area. So now with only one line of code, or more accurately 2 lines, if we go back to our administrative panel and refresh this page, we see this new table, products, that represents our products app. And in this app, currently we only have one model called product. So here we can manage all our products. Currently, we don't have any products in our database. So let's go ahead and add a new product. Look, we get this beautiful form for free. We didn't write any code to create this form and handle the click event of these buttons to insert a product into our database. All this is automatically generated by Django. So let's go ahead and add a new product. Call that orange. Let's say 1.99 each. And set the stock to 50. Now we need an image URL. So open up a new tab here. And in Google, search for orange. Then go to images. Click on tools. From the user rights menu, select for labeled for reuse. This way we don't have problem with copyright issues. So these are the free images that we can use in our application. Let's pick this one. Click on it again. Now on this page, right click the image, copy a link address, and then back to our product form, paste it here, and then save. So we successfully added a product, and that product is listed here in the product table. But what we see here is a little bit confusing. It says product object 1. It's not clear what product this is. Is it an orange? Is it a strawberry? What price is it? So in the next tutorial, I will show you how to customize this table and add columns specific to products. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to customize this products table in the admin area. That is very easy. So back to PyCharm. Here in the admin module where we register the product class for administration, we need to create a new class called product admin. So we create a class called product admin. So this is the convention we follow in Django. We start with the name of our model, that is product, and then we add the suffix admin. Now we should inherit this class from admin.modelAdmin. What is going on here? Well, this admin is a module that we have imported on line 1. In this module, we have a class called modelAdmin, which provides all the common functionality for managing models in the admin area. So by deriving this class from the modelAdmin, this class inherits all this common functionality. Now, in the body of this class, we can override or change some of this functionality or attributes. For example, in this class, we have an attribute called list_display, and this attribute specifies the columns that should be visible in this table. So we set this to a tuple, and in this tuple, we add one or more attributes of our product class. So let's quickly open up our product class. It's here in the models module. Okay, there you go. So our product class has these attributes: name, price, stock, and image URL. Now, image URL, as you saw, is a long string, so we don't want to display that in our table. So in this tutorial, let's add these 3 attributes to our products table. Back to the admin module. In this tuple, we add 3 strings: name, price, and stock. Now we have this little warning here because we haven't added 2-line breaks before and after this class. That is better. Finally, when registering our product class for administration, as the second argument, we need to pass this new class, product admin. So Django will use the information in this class to decide how to present the list of products. So back in the browser, let's refresh this page. There you go. Here's our products table. Now we have 3 columns, name, price, and stock. You can see we have this orange. The price is set to $1.99, and currently we have 50 items in the stock. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and add a new product here. Let's say a strawberry, and the price $2.99, 30 for the stock, and finally we need an image URL. I'm going to paste this address that I just copied before recording this video. Okay, let's go ahead, save the changes. The product is added, beautiful. And now we have 2 products in our table. Now here's what I want you to do. I want you to pause the video and add a few more products to our database, somewhere around 5 to 10. In the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to display these products to the public users of our website, because this admin panel is only visible to admins. So anonymous users or other registered users are not going to have access to this panel. Instead, they're going to go to /products. Now currently we are displaying a hello world message. We're going to change this page and display the list of our products in a beautiful grid. So pause the video and add 5 to 10 products, then come back, continue watching. Currently in the admin area, we can only manage the products in the products app. So there is no way to manage the offers. So as an exercise, add the ability to manage the offers here. When we click the offers link, we should see a table with 2 columns, code and discount. So go ahead and implement this and then create a new offer. All right, here's my solution. In the admin module of the products app, on line 2, first we need to import the offer class. Next, we create a new class called offer admin. We derive this from admin.modelAdmin. And here we set the list display attribute to a tuple with 2 items, code and discount. And finally, we need to register our offer model for administration. So admin.site.register offer and offer admin. That's it. Now, if we go back to the admin area and refresh the home page, we see the offers link here. Beautiful. Currently, we don't have any offers, so let's go ahead and add a new offer. I'm going to use a code like VCA1010. Let's say 10% off all products. And discount, I'm going to set this to 0.1. Now, technically, in a real application, this code should be unique. But that's a topic for a future tutorial, so for now, don't worry about it. Let's go ahead and save this offer. Okay, our offer is saved successfully. Beautiful. As you can see, in this table, we have 2 columns, code and discount. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to replace this hello world message with the list of products in our database. And that is super easy. So here in PyCharm, in the products app, let's open up the views module. Earlier I told you that in this module we define our view functions, which are functions that get called when the browser sends an HTTP request to the server. For example, when the user navigates to /products page, our browser sends an HTTP request to our Django application. Django takes that request and hands it off to this function, the index function. Now here we're simply returning a hello world message. We want to replace this with the list of products in our database. So the first step is to get the products stored in the database, and then we need to format them using some HTML template. So let's go ahead and on the top, import our product class from the models module. So from period models, import product. So we're importing the product class in the models module in the current folder. So period means the current folder. Now this product class has a bunch of useful methods for getting data from our database. For example, we can call product.objects.all, and this returns all the products we have in our database. We also have filter for filtering products. Let's say we want to get products that are more expensive than $2 or products that are out of stock. We can use the filter method. We also have the get method for getting a single product. And we also have the save method for inserting a new product or updating an existing one. Now, in this tutorial, we're going to use the all method to get all the products from our database. Then we store them here in this variable. So we have done the first step. Next, we need to create an HTML template for presenting this list of products to the user. So back to the project panel. Inside the products app, let's add a new folder, a new directory. And by convention, we should call that templates. Make sure to spell it properly because this is a special directory that Django looks at to load templates. So let's go ahead with that. Now we want to create a template for the index function. So inside of this folder, let's add a new file and call that file index.html. Now here we can write some HTML code. If you're not familiar with HTML, don't worry, just follow along with me. It's super easy to learn. So first let's type H1 and then press tab. This inserts an H1 tag into our HTML document, and we use this to display a big bold heading. So inside these tags, let's type products. Now below this H1, let's type UL and press tab. Now this inserts a UL tag, and we use this to display a list of items. Now we need to surround each item with an LI tag. So type out LI, press tab, and in between the tags, let's type item 1, then copy and paste this a couple times. So item 2 and item 3. Now, instead of item 1, item 2, and item 3, we want to display the name of our products. But before we get there, let's simply return this HTML markup to the client instead of the hello world message. So back to the views module. Here in the index function, we need to change the return statement on line 8. So we want to call the render function. This function is already imported on the top on line 2. We use this function to render a template. So let's call this function. As the first argument, we need to pass this request object that we get as an argument to this function. So let's pass the request here. As the second argument, we need to specify the name of our template. So we pass a string. What is the name of our template? That is index.html, right? Now, before going any further, let's go back to the browser and refresh this page. So instead of hello world, we see this products heading. This is the result of an H1 tag. And with UL and LI tags, we see these bullet points over here. Beautiful. Now, finally, we need to replace item 1, item 2, and item 3 with the list of our products. So back to our view function. As the third argument to the render function, we need to pass the list of products that we loaded from the database. So here we need to pass a dictionary. In this dictionary, we're going to add one key value pair. We're going to call the key products, but we could call it anything. It doesn't really matter. The value for that key should be the products object that we define on line 7. So here in our dictionary, let's add this key products, colon, and the value should be this products object. So let me break up what we have on line 8 over multiple lines so you can see it clearly. We're calling the render function with 3 arguments: the request object, the name of our template, and a dictionary that contains the data to be passed to this template. And finally, we're going to go to this template, index.html, and replace these items with our products. That is very easy. So just after the UL tag, I want you to type out a curly brace, followed by a %, a space, a % one more time, and a closing brace. This is what we call a template tag in Django. So in between these markers, we can write dynamic code. For example, we can add loops to repeat some instructions or write if statements to conditionally render some content. So here we want to write a for loop for product in products. So earlier in our view function, we passed these products here using a dictionary. Back to the view function, look, as the third argument to the render function, we passed this dictionary. This dictionary is called the context, so it provides data to be used in our templates. In this case, we have a property called products, and that is the reason we can access it here. So we are looping over these products. Now, for each product, we want to render a list item. So let's indent this item here and replace item 1 with the name of the product. So here we want to dynamically render the name attribute of this product object. To do that, we use double curly braces. So open two curly braces and close them. And in between them, type out product.name. So whenever we use double curly braces in a Django template, Django will evaluate the expression that we put here and render it in HTML. Now, the last step is to end this for block, because Django, unlike Python, doesn't rely on indentation to determine the scope of a block. So right after this for loop, once again, we add curly braces, a %, and type out end for. And then we close it here. Now, we no longer need these items here, so let's delete them. Now back to the browser, let's refresh our page. So instead of item 1 to 3, we see the name of the products stored in our database. Now let's take this to the next level by displaying the price of each product right next to it. So back to our template, this is where we're rendering the name of the product. After the curly braces, let's add parentheses. Now inside of the parentheses, we want to dynamically render the price of each product. So once again, we use the double curly brace syntax to render some value dynamically. That is the value of product.price, like this. Now back here, let's refresh the page. Now we can see the price of each product right here. Beautiful. We could also prefix that with a $sign. So before the curly braces, we add a $sign. And then when we refresh the page, we see the actual dollar value. So this is what I want you to take away in this tutorial. In Django templates, we have two special syntaxes. One is a curly brace and a %. This is called a template tag, and we use this to dynamically execute logic. So in between these template tags, we can write for loops to repeat some code, or we can use if statements to dynamically render content. The other syntax we have is the double curly brace syntax, and we use this to dynamically render values in our HTML markup. So whatever we put in between them will get evaluated and written to the HTML markup. Now, this page is pretty boring so far. In the next tutorial, I will show you how to convert these bullet points into beautiful cards. Over the next few tutorials, we're going to replace this boring list of bullet points with a beautiful modern card like this. So on the top, we're going to display the image for each product. Below that, we're going to display the title or the name of the product, as well as the price and potentially a button to add that product to a shopping cart. Now, to present something like this, we're going to use a framework called Bootstrap. It's a very popular framework for building modern and responsive applications. So head over to getbootstrap.com. On the home page, you should see something like this, and then go to the documentation. On this page, you can see how you can add this Bootstrap framework to your web applications. So if you scroll down, here you should see a starter template. So here we have some basic HTML markup. We want to bring all this HTML markup and store it in a template called base.html. So over here, you should see this copy button. Click that to copy this. Then back to PyCharm. In the project panel, inside of the templates folder, let's add a new HTML file. So a new file, we call this base.html. Now, with Command and V on Mac or Control and V on Windows, paste all this markup that we copied from Bootstrap website. Now, here on line 13, we have the body tag, and this is the container for what the user sees in a given web page. Now, in this example, we have an h1 tag for displaying a Hello World title. We want to replace this with something dynamic. So for each page in our application, we want to render something different. For example, when the user goes to the products page, over here, instead of this h1 tag, we want to render what we defined in index.html here. Okay, so back to base.html, let's delete this h1 tag. Once again, we're going to use a template tag. So curly brace, %, curly brace. Now, the template tag we're going to use is called block. And with this, we can define a block or a hole in this document. So we're going to create a block called content. We could call it anything, but here we're defining the content area of our website. So that's why we call this block content. Now, after this, once again, we need to add another template tag, and this is called end block. Now we should go to index.html. On the top, we should tell Django that we want to extend this base template, which means we're going to use all the markup defined here. And this gives our applications a modern look and feel. So back to index.html. Once again, we're going to use another template tag. This one is called extends. So extends. What are we extending? The template defined in base.html. So here we add a string base.html. Now we want to fill the block or the hole that we defined in base.html with these few lines. So once again, we add a template tag, block. What is the block that we're filling? That is the content block, right? And we close it here. So now all this markup is going to go in the content block. Now finally, we need to close this block. So after the last line, let's add another template tag and block. Now to make this code cleaner, I would prefer to select these few lines that belong to the content block and indent them like this. This is not required, but it just makes our code easier to read. So with these changes that we made in this tutorial, when Django tries to render this page, first it will look at base.html. So it will take all the markup defined in that file, and then it's going to fill this content block with the markup we have defined here. Now, if we go back to our browser and refresh this page, we're going to see something a little bit better. So refresh. You can see the fonts are changed, and there is a little bit more space in between the bullet points. Now we're ready to replace each bullet point with a bootstrap card. And that's what I'm going to show you next. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to display these beautiful cards on our products page. Now note that this page is responsive. So if you view it on a small mobile device, we're going to have one card on each row, like this. And if you view this on a bigger screen, we're going to have more columns or more cards on each row. So let me show you how to build this. First, head over to getbootstrap.com, click on the documentation. Here on the left side, you can see a link called Components. On this page, you can see all the components that are defined in Bootstrap. These are the components that we can add to our web pages to make them beautiful and modern. So the component that we're going to use is called a card. Over here, you can see an example of a card. And right below that, you can see the markup that we need to use to render something like this. So let me resize the screen. Okay. On the top right corner, we have this button. Copy this markup. Now back to index.html. Instead of rendering a UL and a bunch of LIs, we want to render a bunch of divs. Because with UL and LI, we'll get bullet points, but we don't want to display bullet points here. So right below the h1 tag, type out div.row and then press tab. So this creates a div with the class row. Now in this row, we want to repeat multiple columns. So type out div.col as in short for column and then press tab. So we use these divs to create a layout like this. We have multiple columns in a row. Okay. Now inside of a column, we want to render a card. So now we should paste the markup for rendering a bootstrap card. So paste that here. Now you can see our code looks a little bit ugly because it's not indented properly. So on the top, go to the code menu. Here we have this item, reformat code. And look at the shortcut that is associated with this command. So let's click that. Now our code is beautifully formatted and it's easier to read and modify. So we have a row. Inside this row, we have a column, and inside this column, we have a card. Now we're going to take our for loop and put it above this column. So for each product, we want to render a column. So scroll down and grab this line of code, cut it, and then paste it right above this column. Now we should close this for loop. So let's collapse this div below it. Okay. Now right after this div, we want to add a template tag and type out end for. With these changes, we don't need the code from before. We don't need the UL and LI tags. So let's delete all of these. So this is the final result. Inside the content block, we should have these tags. We have an H1 on the top for the heading. Below that, we have a row. Then we have our for loop. And in each iteration, we render a column. So let's also indent this line to go inside the for loop. That's better. Now finally, we close our for loop. And after that, we close our row. With this change, if we go back to the browser and refresh, we get something like this. We're basically repeating all that static or fixed markup from Bootstrap over here. So we're not rendering the actual name or the image of each product. But that is a very easy fix. So back to our markup, let's expand this column. So here's our card. Inside this card, we have an image on line 9. Look at the source attribute of this image. We need to change this and dynamically render the image URL attribute of each product. So let's delete this. And inside the quotes, we add double curly braces to render some value. We want to render product dot image underline URL like this. Now over here on line 11, we have this text card title. We want to replace this with the name of each product. So delete double curly braces and we add product dot name. Next, we need to replace this text with the price of each product. So delete. Here we have a paragraph tag. Inside this tag, we add double curly braces to render product.price. And just before these braces, we want to add a $sign. And the last change is the label for this button. It's called Go Somewhere. We want to change that to Add to Cart. Now back to this page, refresh. We should get something like this. Beautiful. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you a couple of techniques for improving the look and feel of this page. First, we're going to add a navigation bar on the top, and then we're going to add some padding around these elements. Currently, this product card is way too close to the left side of the screen. So we should add some padding to let this page breathe. Now, to add a navigation bar, once again, we go to the Bootstrap website. Look at the documentation for the navbar component. So here's the navbar. Now, if you scroll down, you can see a typical navbar. So we can have these links. We could have a drop down. We could have a search bar. Now, this looks a little bit clunky because I've resized the screen, so it doesn't look pretty. But below that, you can see another simple navigation bar with only the brand or the name of the application. So over here, we have the markup to render this navigation bar. So let's go ahead and copy this. Now back to PyCharm. Where should we add this markup? We should add it to base.html because this is supposed to be a base template for all pages in our application. So here's the opening body tag. Right below this body tag, we want to paste the markup for rendering a navigation bar. Now the code is not formatted properly. It looks clunky. So once again, go to the code menu and then reformat code. As you can see, the shortcut for Mac is Alt, Command, and L. So I'm going to use a shortcut here. There you go. That is better. So here's our navigation bar. Now let's change this text from navbar to PyShop. That's the name of our application, right? Now back to the browser. Let's refresh this page. We have this navigation bar on the top. Let's go back to PyCharm and make a slight change in the structure of our application. So here in the Products app, we created the templates folder. And in this folder, currently we have two templates, the base template for our application and the template for the products page. The problem with this structure is that this base HTML is not reusable because we have added it inside the templates of the products app. What if in the future we want to add another app to this project? We don't want to recreate this base.html in every app. That just doesn't make sense. So we want to reuse this across multiple apps. And that's why we need to move this outside of this folder and put it somewhere central. So in the root of our project, here we need to add a new folder called templates. So right click the project and add a new directory called templates. Now we want to go back to the products app. Inside the templates folder, we drag this base.html file and drop it into the main templates folder. Okay, good. Now our base template is somewhere central, so we can reuse it in multiple apps. However, if we go back to the browser and refresh this page, we get this error: template does not exist. If you scroll down, you can see why we get this error. So over here, you can see this red line. Let me zoom in. This error happened because Django couldn't load base.html. Now, if you scroll up, you can see the paths that Django searches for to find this template. Here's the first path: admin/templates/base.html. So Django is looking for this template inside the admin app. Here's the second path: auth/templates/base.html. So Django couldn't find it in the admin app. It thinks maybe it's in the auth app. And finally, here's the last path: products/templates/base.html. That is our products app. So what is going on here? Django is looking for this template only inside of the installed apps. But this templates folder that we created, it's not really part of any apps. It's just a standalone folder. So we need to tell Django to look inside this folder in addition to the installed apps. And that is very easy. So in the main package, PyShop, you have seen the settings file before. Let's have another look here. If you scroll up, you can see this variable, base directory. This variable is set to the complete path of where you have stored this Django project on your disk. We're going to take this directory and append templates to it. So scroll down. On line 55, you can see the configuration for loading templates. Look at the settings we have here. The first setting is backend, and this is the engine that is used to parse our templates. So all those template tags, as well as the double curly braces, this is the engine that knows how to interpret those. Look at the second setting, directories. This is set to an empty list. So here we need to reference the templates folder in this project. So let's type out os.path. So we're using the path object defined in the OS or operating system module that is imported on the top. Now this path object has a method called join. And with this, we can join multiple parts of a path. The first part is base_dir, which is the variable that I showed you earlier. It's set to the complete path of your Django project. Now we want to take this and append templates to it. That's all we had to do. So back to the browser. Let's refresh the page. There you go. The problem is fixed. So now our base template is somewhere central and we can reuse it across multiple apps. Beautiful. And one last change. Currently, as you see, these items are so close to the left side of the screen. So I'm going to add some padding to make this page breathe. And that is very easy. Back to PyCharm. Here in our base template, where we define this content block, we need to wrap this with a div with the class container. This is one of the classes defined in Bootstrap that we use to define a container area in our application. This container area has some padding. So type out div.container and press tab. Okay, and then move these template tags inside of this div. That's it. Now back to the browser. Let's refresh. So this is our container area. As you can see, we have some padding to the left and right side of this container area. Beautiful. So that brings us to the end of this Django tutorial in this Python course. I hope you learned a lot and thank you for watching.